Welcome to Actual Scale Modelling. This is part 2 of Revell's Airbus A300-600 ST, and it's the Beluga. Scale is 1 to 144, and in part 2 I'm going to be starting the build. But before I get into that, I'll just say in part 1 when I was showing you what was in the box, for some reason I didn't show you the decal sheet. Now, I can't really show you the sheet in its entirety because I've already cut it up into its various components. But later down the build, you'll get to see the decals go on anyway. So I do apologise for that. So in part 2, as I said, my aim is to build up the fuselage with everything that's entailed therein. So let's jump into this and see how well I get on. The first thing I have to do is build up the landing gear, and the landing gear bay as well, and there's just a few simple components to build up here. But first of all, I have to paint a little bit. So the first colour I'm using is Revell Aquacolor 90 Silver, and this is just for the piston bar in the landing gear, or the shock absorber, I should say, for the landing gear. And the rest of it is Revell Aquacolor 91 Steel. So that's the entirety of the landing gear struts themselves, just those two colours. For the housing, the inside of it, I'm using Revell Aquacolor 371 Light Grey. I will also be putting in a little bit of silver in here as well, just to give it a bit of tone and definition. And it's just the various raised areas that I'm painting in with the silver colour. Moving on to the fuselage, and I thought I'd better inspect it. There's a little bit of flashing that has to be taken care of there. And also on the location pins and points here, they're actually the pins meant to go inside these little points, but they weren't drilled out. So I've thought about drilling them out myself, but there's a danger of coming through the fuselage. So in the end, I've just decided to cut off the location point and see how well that sits. Instead of drilling the proper area out, and it fits quite well with that. Just means that I'm going to have to be careful when I'm cementing it that it doesn't slip out of position. But for ease, I think this is the best solution. And if my drill bit slips, it will come through the fuselage, and also I don't want that to happen. So after I've cut it down, I'm just giving it a light sanding to make sure everything's flush with the line. That will give me a better mould, the mould a better grip when I cement this together. As you can see there, then it fits very, very snugly. Now, as I said, I'll just have to be careful when I'm cementing. So it's onto the actual outside of the fuselage, and I'm using Revell Aquacolor 04 Gloss White. Now the reason why I'm painting this now is because the canopy goes on the inside before I close up the fuselage. So instead of masking it all off, it's better just to paint this little part now before going on to it. So while it's drying, I'm starting on the wheels, and I'm using Life Colours Black Rubber Shades Tyre Black for the tyres. Now I've already painted the centre or the hubcap, and I used the Revell Aquacolor 91 Steel. I painted these when I was painting the struts earlier on, just to make sure they were dry before I actually went onto the tyre itself. A part of the struts for the landing gear, this is the front landing gear, have to be made up. So the two parts to this is the main strut and the connection bars and that hold the wheels together. Now, this is a very small contact point, and my fear here is it's not going to be able to hold up the model. It's so small, and I think it's going to snap off. But I'll have to just wait and see how it goes. But to me, the area should be molded all in one, I think. There's not a lot of surface for it to bond, especially considering the weight of the model. But nevertheless, I put together and it's time, as you can see, to place it in its housing. There's two little location points just where I'm placing it in. It's a little bit tricky, it's very tight, but you want it tight, you don't want it to be moving around so much. And once the main section in, it was time to place in the supporting piston section. I anchored that at the bottom first, that just slotted in with no problems whatsoever. And then with a little bit of cement on the tip of it, I just lowered it into position. Don't try and assemble this beforehand when you're doing aircraft with landing gear down. Have an anchor point, then let the two parts marry up once they're inside their housing. It just makes it a lot easier than trying to get the whole unit in one go. Next is to place the wheels on. There's a little shaft that goes through a location hole for it. Again, just pushes on. It is tight, so I needed my tweezers just to add a little bit of force to go through. Of course, I could have opened it up, but it's such a small area. I was worried about it opening up too much, so I just persevered until I got it in position. Now, of course, I could have just taken off this little bar, this axle as such, and cemented the wheel onto the actual unit. And in hindsight, that's what I should have done. It just would have made it a lot easier. These are not going to be free moving, so there's no point having the axle running into an area where you're not going to see it anyway. And once it was dry, it was time to place the whole unit inside the fuselage. There is a location bars in there for you to guide this part in, so it was quite an easy fit. Next is to add some weight. So as you can see there, I've got some coins. I'm going to use that as my ballast. I tried other bits and pieces to put in there for the weight, but it just wasn't big enough to have a minimum of 30 grams in. So I'm just putting in some coins. So all I'm using is a bit of super glue to place them in. And I'll just put some on each side so the weight is balanced on the fuselage. And it's an easy way to do it if there's enough room inside the fuselage to add your weight. Next, I'm using microcrystal clear for the canopy. This is a white glue solution which doesn't fog up any clear parts, so it's essential really to use this sort of stuff when you're doing a canopy. You can of course use normal cement, but if you do use that, give it time for the vapours to evaporate before you cement the area into place. You do have time to do that, but it's just worth keeping that in mind, and it's really better just to go for the canopy glue if you can. So obviously I didn't have to mask this canopy because I pre-painted the part beforehand, so that's why I was able just to throw it straight in. So it's onto the cementing the actual fuselage together. Now I'm only concentrating on the front part of the fuselage. Now I often do that when I'm building long areas of a model together, but particularly on this one because I had taken off the location points to help keep it in place. Bear in mind as well, it's an awkward shape to bond together all in one go. So it's actually more advisable just to bond this in little parts. Of course, you can do it the other way and put it together, then use a capillary action with a thin cement. I don't like doing that. It does create a bond, but to me it doesn't create the best bond. There's nothing wrong with doing it if that's how you like to do it, but I prefer to do it the old way of putting a bit of cement on both parts, then marrying it up. So I'm just going to hold this for a little while until it's bonded. So once that's bonded, I can then go down the fuselage and just apply the cement and hold it where necessary and line it up. It's a very laborious way to do it, but it ensures that the fuselage is not going to slip and give you loads of sanding to do when it's all dried, because you'll end up with a little step that you'll have to get rid of. And this is where I'll end part 2. This is going to have to be dried overnight, I think, so it's better just to end the video here. I mean, as a rule, I don't generally leave it overnight, but I want to make sure it's completely stable before I move on to the next process. So if you haven't done so already, why don't you check out the channel for my other builds? If you subscribe to the channel, make sure you hit that notification bell. That way you'll be kept up to date not only with this build, but all my future builds as well, of course. Hit that like button, don't be afraid to leave a comment, and of course you can share the video. But for now, thank you all very much for watching. Bye bye.